Propaganda is a powerful tool, especially when you can make the bad guy into the good guy and have sympathy and or empathy for the bad guy. Get tuned in for those in the cheap seats. Tonight, I want to talk about Sophia the Savage. And yeah, I'm going back to the color purple. Sophia was a savage, point blank period. When you look at the movie Color Purple and you really you peel back the layers of the color purple, you can see a lot of propaganda of womanism just flourishing in the color purple. For instance, I like to look at the character Sophia. And when we look at Sophia, what was Sophia in the color purple if she was not a bad person? She was a bad person. If we really just peel back the victimhood mentality of looking at Sophia, we can begin to examine why Sophia found herself in these situations, because Sophia was a savage. And when I say savage, I mean Sophia only thought and cared about Sophia. This is why Sophia did the things she did. When we first are introduced to Sophia in the movie, and I'm focusing on the movie because of the visuals, she's marching up to Mr.'s house. I mean, she's marching, and you can even hear the narration of Miss Seeley saying she's just a marching up. She's already in her attitude. She's already in her, don't nobody mess with Sophia mind state. So she's coming to meet Harpo's father in this particular way. She's storming up to their land. She's storming up to the house. And so when she meets Mr. is like, are you pregnant? And she like, no, I'm big though. Mr., does what any father would do. He was like, look, a girl, mesmerizing my son to gain things, and she might be in the motherly way. And then Sophia interrupts him and says, well, all Harpo has, he got from you. Well, where else should he have gotten it from? He works for his family. He works on his family's land. And see, that was one, and let's look at modern day times. I'm gonna veer off just a second. A lot of black women say they want black men to be entrepreneurs. Well, was not Mr. and his family entrepreneurs? They own their own land, they formed their own land. So Harpo worked for his father, he worked for the family business. And Sophia has the audacity to turn around and tell Mr. everything he has, he got from you. Where else should he have gotten it from if not his family's land? Sophia the Savage. After they have that little confrontation, she tells Harpo, well, me and the baby will be waiting for you at the house. Now, maybe I misinterpret something from the beginning. I thought she said she wasn't pregnant, but then near at the end of that conversation, she was like, me and the baby will be waiting for you at the house. I'm not sure if she already had a baby or she was just saying, I'm in a motherly way and we'll be waiting for you when you're done with your daddy. She was flippant, she was disrespectful, and she was aggressive. On the next scene, we see in their little Sophia and Harpo's scene in the movie, they're getting married. And you can clearly see that Harpo is reluctant to marry Sophia because I'm sure at this point Harpo is keenly aware of Sophia's behavior. He knows she's aggressive, he knows she's disrespectful, but I'm assuming that he got her pregnant and he has no choice because this was the 1930s, I believe, and he wanted to do the right thing. So he marries her. So once they get married and Harpo is working, he's working and he's slaving away on his family land. He's trying to build him a home. And Sophia's just walking around with a baby and being belligerent and doing the Sophia the Savage stuff. And she calls down to Harpo and say, Harpo, come feed this baby or come get this baby. Now, mind you, Harpo is in the middle of working, but that doesn't matter to Sophia the Savage. Sophia the Savage wants it her way. So she calls him down, gives Harpo the baby, and she storms off to do her thing. And Harpo says, what I'm gonna do with her? And this is when we have the classic line when Seeley says, beat her. Now ask yourself, why did Seeley say beat her? You know why Seeley said that? Because she knew Sophia was a savage and she knew Sophia was not gonna listen to Harpo because Harpo was beta and Harpo was weak. So Harpo took the advice of Seeley, and of course what happened, he got into a fight. They got into a fight, I should say. They got into a fight. They went back and forth, beating on each other, doing whatever they were doing. They just got into a fight. I'm gonna say that right there. They just got into a fight. And later on, Sophia storms up to Miss Seeley and she says, you told Harpo to beat me. And Miss Seeley was like, well, yeah, I told him to do that. life is temporary and you'll move past it. And Sophia was like, all my life I had to fight. Remember that line when she was like, all my life I had to fight. I had to fight my daddy. I had to fight my brothers. I had to fight my uncles. In other words, painting this picture that all the men in her family were just horrible and terrible and she had to fight them all. Now, if you look at Sophia, come on, man. Oprah Winfrey, come on, man. You wouldn't fight nobody to get them off of you. Get out of here with that nonsense. Anyhow, all my life I had to fight. Back to that line. And she was like, a girl child ain't safe in a family of men. In other words, insinuating or inferring that all the men in her family were some type of assaulters. You know, and I'm going to keep it PG for the YouTube algorithm. But all the men in her family were some type of assaulters. And that she had to grow up rough and she had to grow up fighting them off her, which makes her aggressive and makes her, you know, this in my opinion personally, a bully. And she then tells Miss Celie that she better knock Mr. upside the head, and she storms off. So later on, you see that, you know, through the narration of Celie that, and they were very, you know, dysfunctional, I should say, until Sophia decided to leave. And what does she do? She takes his kids. And then her sister's like, good riddance. Now I ask you, at this moment, Sophia made a conscious decision to take her children away from their father. So she takes, now they're not divorced. Now remember this, Harpo and Sophia are not divorced. She just leaves. No. So later on, Harpo and one of his friends decide to build a juke joint. And they build a juke joint, and once they got it built, Sophia traces in with her current beau and flaunts him in front of her husband. Now, they're still married, and I'm not saying Harpo wasn't with another woman, because he clearly was. But Sophia comes in with her new beau, and she's telling him, oh, my house, this is my old house, and my kitchen used to be here. Harpo approaches her, and with good reason, he said, you know, this is scandalous, a married woman in a juke joint, and, you know, all that stuff happens, and she gets into a fight with Harpo's current girlfriend, and it was just really disrespectful. I'm not saying that Harpo wasn't being disrespectful by having another woman and having her up in his place, but Sophia was doubly disrespectful because she knew Harpo was going to be there because it was his place, and she came in with her new beau. All right, so let's get past the turmoil or the dysfunction between Harpo and Sophia, and I want to focus on my main point of contention here, showing you why, I should say, Sophia is really a savage. Sophia was so much of a savage that even in front of the white oppressor, she was willing to be belligerent, disrespectful, and downright nasty. So she's at the service station, and I guess the woman, what was her name in that? Miss Millie or Miss Millie or Miss Mike, whatever the hell the woman's name was, approaches her, and she's playing around with her kids and says, your kids are so clean, would you like to come and work for me and be my maid? And instead of Sophia saying, no ma'am, no thank you, I already have a job, what does Sophia say? Hell no. Now this is the 1930s, still Jim Crow. She says, hell no. Now why did she say that, you may ask? Because she's a savage and she doesn't have respect for any authority. She won't follow under anyone's leadership, and she wants to do what she wants to do. Classic modern female. This classic modern female behavior was shown in a film about the 1930s. So what does that tell you? This pathology of the modern day woman has been festering for a long time. Even in Alice Walker's writings of how a woman should be, how an independent, strong woman should be, is manifested in Sophia. And what happened to Sophia? She got busted about the head and went to prison and ended up having to be the woman's servant anyhow. So what did Sophia prove out of all her belligerent disrespect and downright nastiness? Nothing. She still was oppressed, and she still was brought under heel by her white oppressors. So at the end of the day, her strong will, her strong sense of not being told what to do or following under anyone's leadership, she still fell under someone's leadership and heel, and it was her white oppressor. Sophia was a savage. I don't care what anyone says. Sophia was the savage of color purple. That's all I got tonight. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.
Like Jesus.